Hello, my name is Jaclyn Smochek, and today I'm going to be talking to you about creating a learning environment. The first element I would like to talk about in the learning environment is creating a meaningful and rigorous learning environment for the students. And the first element would be creating a bounded yet open space where the students are focused on group-oriented learning, open areas for reading, and clear and focused goals, objectives, and announcements. What you see in the two pictures are the back of the classroom where we have the open reading area, which we use for book clubs or any kind of independent work where the students would like to go back and have a little break from their desks. And we also have a little bit of the Creativity Center where we have paints, glue, additional books, any rulers, scissors that they would need for the modality projects that they work on in class. In addition to the open concept classroom, we also have those clear, focused objectives and goals and announcements. We are a student-centered room and school that's focused on the ideals of respect, responsibility, and integrity, not only within the classroom, but within the school. Also on the board, we want to focus on those clear-cut standards for each unit or lesson, objectives for whatever lesson we're teaching within the week or the month, as well as the daily agenda, any homework they have, and just overall things that we want the students to focus on, which is the Just Be Awesome poster. In addition with the having a good daily agenda and homework, it gives the students that, idea that they really need to focus on what they're doing and not get lost in the open environment. Here you'll see a layout of the actual classroom since I couldn't get the entire room in the picture. You'll notice that it is hospitable yet charged. There's a warmth to the classroom, as you could see in the pictures on the previous slide, and it creates a comfortable, safe space with those open areas, but it also includes those productive work areas with one-to-one computers in the classroom and a group desk setup. So as you can see in the back, we have our reading corner, and then our desks for group work, my teacher desk, and the whiteboard with a teacher podium at the front. Here you get to see some of the students working on a collaborative project as well as some independent work, which invites the voice of the individual as well as the group, and also welcomes speech and silence in the classroom. Again, we are that student-centered room, which creates that environment for independent and interdependent learning. We do have the appreciation for quiet reflection through silent sustained reading, as well as those group and classroom discussions that are on topics within the class as well as the community. Again, with these pictures, you'll be able to tell that, we do incorporate those student-centered stories into the bigger picture. They connect all of their experiences to the outside events in the community and around the world through articles of the week, research projects, connections to any stories we read, and we really want them to get that individual connection to a story so that they can understand the perspective of it and gain that sense of empathy. Within the classroom, we also want to focus on getting that sense of accountability in the classroom. So we do focus a lot on independent work, projects, readings, research writing tasks, accountability, self-reflection, and analysis. Articles of the week, which are nonfiction, focus on things that are going on around the world that the students would like to focus on and understand a little bit better. What you're looking at here are two of the outside projects that I do in my class. The first one is a writing project where they can either write a series of poems, a personal narrative, or a short story narrative. So even though it is independent, it still focuses on their individual wants and needs in their learning process. The second one is an outside novel project focused on the idea of compassion. They need to pick 4 projects by standard so that it is focused on, the learning standards for the unit of compassion. And they have to pick a novel from the choice list that you see on the bottom. And they have to read it and choose 4 of those projects to complete to show understanding and comprehension of the novel they just read. This shows accountability in the fact that it is completely outside. They're given it a month or 2 in advance, and we don't talk about it again until the end unless there's some one-on-one discussions that we want to have about the book during guided study hall or tutoring if a student needs help with comprehension. We also want to focus on having those students get that outside connection and relevance within their community. So here's an example of a protest poetry research on lyrics where they're able to go out and research, their own pop culture and their own songs that are focusing on issues of today, things that they're always hearing about in the media and listening to on the radio. And this is their opportunity to dive into those ideas a little bit further to understand what's going on in the world, why it's happening, and it promotes a good opportunity for group discussion as well as overall classroom discussion. As an introduction into that unit that we previously talked about, here's an example of one of the close readings that a student would do on a teacher-selected song, dealing with the ideas of protest movements and what's going on in the world today and what students have to deal with. So this is given to them as their initial example and instructional strategy so they know what to look for as they go out into their own research. Once again, focusing on that open concept, we do have the Reading Corner book club. And instead of just promoting, free reading time in the classroom, we do want to have that idea of accountability. So we do have a book club project where the students each semester have to choose one project option to do. And every Friday, once they complete book club, they have to work on their project to show substantial growth within the subject area that they are reading. There's a variety of project options from writing to multimedia to artistically drawing options from the book. The next example of some of the independent work is more of a technology research-based project produced within the Microsoft application where they go into the program called Sway and they have a series of research strategies they need to figure out for the Edgar Allan Poe unit, and they have to really dive into his life and the story that they're reading in order to gain a better understanding of what's going on within the unit. Also, as you can see at the bottom, there's an example of one of the clear-cut rubrics that the students get with their projects so they understand exactly what they need to get on each project in order to get the most effective score. And finally, usually at the end of a unit, a literary analysis task is brought into the unit for a multiple variety of reasons. First and foremost, to get the students prepared for the park assessment that happens usually in April. We really want to get those organizational skills and that sense of being able to self-generate an essay without any help into their heads so that they can become successful. This is one of the tasks from the Edgar Allan Poe unit. My students are actually working on this next week when we go into the classroom. And what they're going to learn besides the organization is how to not only formulate their essay, but also work with their peers afterwards in the group aspect to peer edit and make changes and adaptations as necessary. Moving on to some of the interdependent activities that we have in the classroom. These would include anything where multiple modalities are involved, projects that promote group work, group reflection, connections, agreement, or collaboration. These can range anywhere from literature circles to small group discussions, group projects, and critical thinking groups within the class. What you see on the side is one example from a Julius Caesar unit where the students had to get into groups based on whether or not they were for Julius Caesar or against Julius Caesar. So not only did they have to pick a political side, but then they had to collaborate and agree upon aspects of the newspaper to create one cohesive element, such as, the title, headline stories, character interviews, opinion pieces, as well as coming up with collaborative images for the character interviews and the rest of the articles and the classified section. Also, what was neat about this project is that the students had to work within one document. So when they opened their team's collaboration folder, you could see who was editing the document, who was typing in what square. So it really needed and showed those students the idea of that group collaboration aspect. Another really great group assignment that our students do is dealing with the idea of imagery within a story. And with this, they get to, in their groups, choose which type of imagery suited their story and their group the best, and as well as their talents the best. And then they get to create their imagery assignment together as a group. You'll see some results from this assignment in the upcoming slides. But this really created a sense of unity within the groups because they did have to, work together for about 4 days and agree on what to create, how to create it, how to troubleshoot issues they were having, and turn in that one whole assignment at the end of the due date. So here's an assignment where, again, the group activity had to create a closed circuit storybook. So they had to figure out not only how to wire their interactive storybook to light up, they had to figure out how and where they wanted these elements to occur within the story that would make it most effective throughout the storytelling process. Just like with the last project, it really promoted a sense of community and group collaboration because they did have to agree upon all elements of the story and creation of the product and wiring and battery operation in order to get the storybook to function. Two of the other final things that you'll see here are more of the motivational modality projects that we got our students to work with, and these were for literature circles in the area of fictional stories. So again, in groups with their literature circle stories, they had to decide as their final project if they wanted to make an iMovie trailer or a stop motion animation film, which incorporated the use of Legos and clay in order to create scenes from their story. This was a really cool assignment because it really allowed you to see how the students got to work together, especially with troubleshooting. They had to figure out from start to finish how to get photos, download those photos, and turn them into a film. And with the iMovie, they had to really work together to get these scenes, props, any dialogue down to a pat before they could really film it and turn it into one cohesive element. We did also have the opportunity for a green screen to come in, so they really got excited while working with that project. So looking at positive peer relations within the classroom as well as the school, I already mentioned that our classroom is built on the ideals of respect, responsibility, and integrity, and this is a Wacomico High School motto. It is our Tribe Pride logo, and as you can see on the poster, all of those elements are expected to be followed in the classroom, in the hallways, and outside of school as well. So we want to create a community where we value opinions, pay attention to whoever's talking, listen to what people have to say, respect their decisions, respect the school, respect each other. In terms of the classroom, be on time, be prepared, come to school, do your work, be appropriate, treat others with responsibility and integrity, and also just, do your own work, don't cheat, be honest with yourself and others in the classroom because you'll end up being a more successful individual overall. Moving on to the idea of social development within the classroom, there are these ideas of groupings within the classroom. Not everyone learns the same, so there are a lot of tiered level groupings based on ability, strengths, and interests. Within the ability levels, we have, different writing workshops to get those strengths up, different Lexile scores so that students aren't reading too above or below their own level. That way, they're not too challenged and get frustrated, or too bored where they end up giving up. Also, different strengths within their small group projects and choice boards, as well as their interests, multiple modality units, as well as literature circle choices, not making them always read something that they have to. What you see in the picture is an example of one of the tiered Lexile folders for Edgar Allan Poe. Again, we're working on this unit now. What was done here was the students were given a story based on their Lexile score, as well as general ability level within the classroom. So you'll see level 1 has the easiest stories and level 4 has the hardest story. The students weren't told which level was which, just that they were put into a level and, they're reading what they're reading. Within that folder, all of their questions, analysis questions, and elements of the story were based off of their Lexile score. And they got progressively harder as the story went on to see how the students were adjusting to the elements of the story. Again, looking at an idea of communication, motivation, and instruction in the classroom, those variety of methods that deal with direct and indirect instruction, email, computer software access for notes, class collaboration, teacher access at all times. Also, we try to incorporate people, interests, pop culture events, and as many culturally relevant elements into the classroom. The students are always surprised when we go into an older author and we can still connect those things to elements or events of today. This is going back to the protest poetry research on lyrics. Even though we start the unit with some older poetry, this is the first unit where the students are subjected to the connection to today. And they really get that understanding that things go in a circle, and until things change, we're going to keep having that circular motion throughout the world. So this is a really good introductory pop culture lesson that gets the students motivated to learn what they have to in the classroom in order to see what's going on in the world around them. Looking at positive interactions in the classroom, we do have multiple opportunities for peer reflection and review, as well as having group roles and responsibilities for all group projects, having elements such as, the speaker, the recorder, timekeeper, materials manager, task manager. Having a clear-cut goal and responsibility has accountability for the students. What you'll see on the side is an example peer review sheet that the students would get for an essay. And it's really trying to get that analysis or feedback for the student that they're reading the story on. They also get a check mark of organization. So does their paper have an introduction, a conclusion, the body paragraphs in between? Is it in order with their thesis statement? Does the textual evidence show efficient explanation and support? Things like that. Once they check off the elements of the list, they go into this peer review sheet to give feedback to the student to say what they need to add or subtract and make their paper the best it can be. As I mentioned before with the Edgar Allan Poe modality projects, here's some example of the work that was created, which also shows how students can work together to get quality creative work. Some of the other projects we do besides claymation deals with STEM, the 3D printing, claymation with stop motion, the closed circuit creation book, the iMovie, anything technological that we can bring into the classroom to show that cross-curricular aspect with those STEM or STEAM ideas really gets those students involved and wanting to work on these projects. One final thing you'll see here was from the Julius Caesar unit, and it did deal with group collaboration and pulling elements into that pop culture realm. So they had to take the Julius Caesar scene that they wanted and recreate it in some sort of modern day genre. The example you'll see here is a rap battle that some of the students created where they rewrote the dialogue and turned it into a song. And they did perform it in front of the class and really made an impact and still had understanding for the play, which is what we wanted to get out of it. Another way we look at cross-cultural experience in the classroom is looking at units that are designed around diversity, compassion, and social justice. So some of the things we do to focus on these areas, we do a huge social justice project where we look at different elements around the world, such as child marriage and human trafficking, and poverty, child soldiers, and, we really want the students to learn about these ideas because many of them, when we first start this project, don't even know what these topics are. And it really creates that atmosphere of empathy and need to do something in order to change what's going on in the world. So how we would segue into some of these topics is by doing essential questions for each unit, which is what you're going to see on the next two slides. And what they do is in their small groups, they look at these questions and they come up with answers as a group to figure out what the best answers or solutions to these questions would be. Once they come up with these answers, they go around the room and write their answers on posters and turn it into kind of a graffiti poster of short answers as to what we can do to change the world or bring awareness to these different issues. So here's an example of the final project where we have our questions up here, and then this is the product of every class adding something to the poster. The only rule is that if it's already on the poster, when they get up to it, they have to come up with something new. They can't just keep repeating themselves over and over again. So it really not only helps with that connection to group work, but also critical thinking skills because they might just have to on the fly think of something new. Also, finally, with cross-cultural experience, we want to look at, again, those units that are focused around subject areas that are sensitive around the world. So the final thing we would want to do is look at some perspective narratives, which allow the students to get into the mindset of those people from all over the world to get that final understanding of empathy and need for social actions. So they would usually learn about the topic, read a memoir of someone who went through it, watch some videos of the people who went through these subjects, and then write about it. Get into their shoes and write a personal narrative telling what they feel or rewrite a story that they already know from their perspective. Looking at some planning or goal strategies for these experiences would, in the classroom, we want to look at calendars, to-do lists, utilization of Microsoft Teams, which is a great tool when you have one-on-one computer access. It not only is an all-in-one place for documents to be stored, but they also have access to their assignments there. They can edit assignments directly in that area, save it, and then hit a turn in button at the end. So it really helps with organization because there's none of this, I emailed it to you, but now I can't find it, or I turned this paper in, or my dog ate it. Everything's in one centrally localized area that they can access at school, at home, and even on their phone. Also, they are provided with a school email that is connected to Teams, so they can email at all times, get access to OneDrive, to files that they saved in the classroom anywhere. Also, they have a program called Naviance, which is a really good program that's used between the students and guidance counselors. And it's a program that is really good for applying to schools, creating resumes, and getting teacher recommendations. Finally, all of this stuff really goes down to their organization. They need these organizational skills now in order to be successful when they get out into the real world. So all of these things that we do in class really helps them prepare and be accountable for things that they'll experience later on. Some of the ways that we look at communication in the classroom would be that adjustment, looking to incorporate those variety of lesson strategies that you saw in the previous slides that deal with comprehension and understanding. And if something is seen that, they're really not getting it, go back and reteach and re-strategize so that they get it. Also, we want to provide a multitude of ways for students to show their comprehension besides just saying, do a multiple choice test or regurgitate some information that you just learned and then forget it. Give me a matching test. We don't want to do that. We really want to focus on projects and choice boards and modalities that show comprehension in the way that they learn the best. Also, when it is necessary, we would provide translation materials for any student who does not understand English or has an ELL, to make sure that they're comprehending and understanding the materials effectively. For support personnel and continuum of services, we would want to look at what the students have access to help them throughout their high school career. The first would be having access to their guidance counselors when they need to. This is where email access would come in great because they have the ability to email their guidance counselor, say, hey, I need to meet with you about this, this, or this, and they get that meeting more efficiently than just saying, hey, can I go to guidance, and, not being able to see them. Also, having co-teachers for IEP students or instructional assistants in there for students with 504 plans really helps with the instructional strategies and additional elements of the classroom where those students might be struggling. Also, having a student service personnel employee is beneficial because they really dive into those student issues right off the bat and prevent things happening like fights and bullying and any kind of things that would need an intervention. Also, having proper administrative services for referrals is another great aspect so that students are held accountable for their actions. Also, you'll see this is an example of an accommodations chart to make sure that there is an adherence to all IEP, 504, ELL, BIP, and medical support services. So every time we have a student in the class, they would get a sheet like this, and you basically say what kind of test you were doing, whether or not the student went with their accommodations or denied them, and why. This really provides a good source of information for students and teachers and guidance counselors and SPED services to look at the students' growth and goals to say, they don't need an IEP anymore, or maybe they need an addition to their IEP or 504. All of these areas combined really create that sense of learning in the learning environment within the classroom. It really helps with the motivational strategies and instructional strategies in the classroom. And I hope you can take away something from this today. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.